Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Ministry Talks Podcast.
What's happening, everybody?
You know what? I think one season I said, welcome back to the pod. And I think we are allowed to say that now.
I think we're allowed to say that. Yeah.
I don't know if
we are 8 seasons in. The pod actually makes sense.
Yeah. The first season, you can't say that, but
no,
I think I think anything after 5 seasons, you are allowed to say the pod. So welcome back. Welcome back to the pod, season 8.
Welcome back to the pod.
Hey, listen, we're so glad that you're here. Couple things. First of all, if you have not liked, followed, subscribed, make sure you do that. Stay up to date on everything we have going on here. We would love your support. If you have been supporting, thank you. If this is your first time here, welcome. Do not feel like you have to, but man, we would surely and truly appreciate any donations that you would be willing to give to us as we are on Riverside FM in this season moving forward. We are just trying to expand Ministry Talks Podcast. We want everything to get better. One of our episodes was You Don't Drift into Greatness. And so for Pastor Wes and I, we want to continue to put our best foot forward. So go to buymeacoffee.com/Men Talks Podcast. There's some different levels and options, and you can give one time. You don't have to give at all, but we do appreciate any help. Your guys' support helps us be able to do the things that we're doing, such as Riverside FM.
Yep.
Okay. Last episode was a good one. And if you listen, don't leave right now. Finish this episode first, but go back to it was episode 5, A Job Understanding. My brother did an amazing job. He broke the scripture down and everything. So go do that. But for episode 6, we are talking about getting back to zero. Pastor Wes, floor is yours. Lay the foundation, man. Where are we going?
Yeah. So getting back to zero, the concept behind that is in order to move forward, you have to assess where you are. And there are a lot of folks. Okay, so we're in October, right?
Yeah.
A lot of folks who have been like, hey, man, this has been a good year, or it's been a tough year, or it's been a really crummy year, right? Really crappy year. And I just don't know how to move forward. Sometimes then the best way to move forward is to assess and look backward, and then take the necessary steps to get yourself back to zero. What is neutral? What is a good, hey, if I take the next step, it's considered forward. And so in the Christian world, a lot of that is, how do I grow myself, right? I've been through this instance. I've been through that instance. I've been through this hard time. I've been through that hard time. Okay, God's been with me through the whole thing, but man, it's just been a really tough year. So then back to zero, you would want to ask yourself a couple of questions. How was my prayer life? Did I stay in the Word of God? Did I stay in a community of believers who were there to help me and support me, right? Or did I bounce? Did I bounce from all of that? Yeah. So for you, getting back to zero would look like getting back into your spiritual disciplines. Right. For a business leader, zero would be, have you actually looked at all of your metrics throughout the year? Have you been hitting your numbers? Right? Is there somebody, here you go. Is there somebody you need to hire or somebody you need to let go?
Right.
Right. What's going to get you back to the place where you feel like your next step is a step of growth. And if you feel like, man, there's just so much I have to do before I know that we can grow, that's getting back to zero.
You know, and to like you said, we are in October. So right. For some of us, you know, we started 2024 with a resolution or a commitment. Whether it be fitness, whether it be financially, whether it be personally, you made a commitment that said, I am going to commit to doing, right. You fill in the blank. And sometimes some of our goals, as big as they are, and I love dreaming. Okay. I'm a dreamer. I believe in coloring outside the lines, but sometimes we have to be realistic within some of our goals too. And I'm not trying to put anybody down, and I'm not trying to say that your dreams and your goals can't be accomplished, but for the sake of just being transparent on this podcast, I think some of the goals that certain people try to reach are just not realistic. So we have to do a real self-evaluation. What can I handle in this season? Yeah. Mm-hmm. What am I overcommitting to in this season? Am I saying yes too much? Do I need to say no? My wife says it all the time. A healthy no goes a long way.
Yeah.
And it's okay to say
Yeah.
no. I don't, in the obligation of, oh man, this person asked me to do that. Now I got to do it. You
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
that with this podcast just before we came back to season 8. You asked a real question that made me sit, made us look. Hey, what's going on with Ministry Talks podcast? We got busy, we
Yeah. Oh,
got
yeah.
carried away, and not in a bad way. It's just we were in that space and in that season. But we came back, and I said, hey man, I still believe in Ministry Talks podcast. I still believe in what we're doing, and so we made a pivot. But we made a pivot that was beneficial for both you and I.
Yep.
To allow us to be able to do this. So sometimes, and I guess here's my question as we continue to lay the foundation, why is it hard for people to accept where they're at?
Well, a lot of times it's the negative, it's the negativity of I failed, or it's the fear of actually acknowledging that maybe you didn't do your best.
Or you didn't do
It's
anything at all.
or anything at all. Yeah, exactly. Those kinds of things really, really tend to put everything that you're working on into a very bad light. You're in this negative light of oh, that's why I'm not trying to go and review the year and go. But it's those types of things that really help you grow to the next step. Sometimes looking back to go forward. And I know that sounds super cliche and it's all of that. Listen, if you can't assess where you are, then you don't know where you're going to go. So you got to start there, and then you get to go forward. Right. And even if forward is, hey, let's get back to 0, I can see 0 over there. And look, I'm going to do what it takes to get back to neutral, right? Yeah. To get back to 0. I'm going to do that. And so, I think that's one of the main reasons is like, we don't want to, we're afraid to admit failure, or we're afraid that we admit that, hey, maybe I didn't do as much as I could.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't do everything I should. Or maybe I did nothing. That's just a hard place to put yourself.
And it's also hard to accept the reality of October is here. And
oh yeah.
I mean, we're looking at 2 more months and then that's it. Happy New Year's going into 2025.
Right.
And for some people, they might be checked out. Some people are like, you know what? I've done everything I needed to do, or I'm just going to ride this wave, get by, and start over at January 1. Why people wait for January 1 to start over? I will never get it. I mean, you probably could give a smarter answer, but I'm just going to give a real life answer. I don't know why people wait for January 1 to do what they need to do.
I don't either. The best day to get started on something is the day that ends in Y.
Right. But I guess here's something else, man. Because I know when we talked about a few years ago, you mentioned this concept that you presented to Hope Church of getting back to 0.
Yeah.
And when you presented it to me, I loved it because I kind of felt like we as believers, because obviously we are in the world of Christianity, but also, we know some business people. I'm not a business person, but I know some people who run businesses and stuff, and you do too. I think getting back to 0, the concept is, and I want to take what you said, but go a little bit more. I think we have to acknowledge that there's a problem.
Yeah.
I think before you go to the doctor, if you're in pain, you first need to acknowledge, hey, I'm in pain. My shoulder's hurting. I probably should go get this checked out.
Right.
And because of that, now you have something to work towards. Now, here comes the thing. We're going to go to the doctor. They're going to help us, quote unquote, get better. They're going to give us a quote unquote recommendation on what we need to do, right? Let's just say you don't need surgery, but you need to rest for 6 to 8 weeks.
Right.
If you do anything outside of that, it will be severe. Now, if I rest 2 weeks and I feel good, I can go no, I need to rest 6 to 8 weeks because that is what was given to me. Sometimes, Pastor Wes, I'm gonna say this, and then I know we got to take our break to get to our sponsors and stuff, but we do a terrible job as human beings at following instructions.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, and I say that with respect, and I say that, to the listeners listening right now, and I include myself. One of the things my teacher used to tell me when I was in kindergarten or first grade, and I still remember it at 35 years old, listen to instructions first time given.
Yeah.
It's like, that's like the number one thing they teach you when you're kindergarten, first grade. Listen to instructions the first time they're given. Now, why we struggle with listening to instructions and following those instructions? Well, you and I feel like we know better.
Right. Yeah.
I'm gonna do this. Like, this way is faster.
Mm-hmm.
So, I got to pause for the cause so we can thank our sponsors, and then we'll get back into this beautiful conversation of getting back to Zerø.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So we want to acknowledge the fact that we are on Riverside FM, riverside.fm. And this platform's been really good for us so far. And it will be good for our upcoming episodes as well. We're going to be doing some interviews. We're going to be doing a couple of live shows. Don't know when that's coming, but we're gearing up. I got to make sure that I know how to push all the right buttons. But yeah, Riverside FM, we are an affiliate with them. And so if you actually get a paid subscription, one of their less expensive subscriptions is only like $15 a month, and you can do something like this as well. Then we get a little kickback. We want to say thank you for that. But it's because of your support that we can even do stuff like this. And so we want to say thank you to all of our viewers and listeners and subscribers, those folks who are actually supporting us on the monthly and or single time giving. We thank you for that. We get to have the opportunity to do this, create good content, get out there, invest in a little bit of gear to make sure that it all looks good and sounds good, so we can keep creating content. We are super grateful for all of that. So thank you to you guys. And you can find all of that at buymeacoffee.com/mintalkspodcast.
Yes.
And all kinds of different levels that you can support at, one-time gift and or continued monthly support. Either way, it would be greatly appreciated so we can continue putting out this awesome content for the kingdom. 100% goes towards right back into Ministry Talks platform. All of it does. None of it goes to our pockets. It also goes to giveaways, which we will do again today. Yeah. We'll get to that at the end of the episode today. But yeah, again, thank you guys for all of your support, all of your prayers, and all of your everything else. So we greatly appreciate you.
Okay, let me ask you something, man, because I love to ask questions, kind of poke the bear. Do you think we're living in a day and age right now where it's just easier to just, hey, I'm going to just, like, not easier said than done, because that's a comment that's easier said than done. So I guess the poke the bear question is, do you think we're living in a day and age where we are procrastinating more than we are being proactive?
Yes, and... Okay, there's my answer. Yes, and I think that procrastination is a lot easier nowadays because we have everything at our fingertips.
Agreed.
Right?
Agreed.
So and I'm going to be ironic all over the place. I'm going to do it super ironically. Hipster me's coming out. So like, you're on YouTube a whole lot. Right? You got homework to do. You're on social media a whole lot. You got Hulu on your phone. Take Hulu off your phone. Stop wasting all your time. Take Hulu off your phone. And can I just say it? Can I just be real and say it? Stop watching TV on the crapper. Put your phone down for a minute. Get your business done. Get the paperwork done. And get out and go do something else, right? Mm-hmm. But what we do is we all of us live in an age where consumerism has begun to define a generation.
Yeah.
And so here's the hard part. Christianity is no different. Mm-hmm. Right? People I can watch whoever I want to watch on here. Right? I can watch whoever I want to watch on my phone. I can watch you preaching on a Wednesday night. I can watch Pastor Jack. I can watch Jeff Capusto. Shout out Capusto. He's one of my favorite pastors to follow. But I can watch whoever I want. And to have all of this access hasn't made us any more productive. I think it's actually put a lot of people back on their heels. Spotify, you can get any of the plays and the musics and the podcasts and the things that you want. Is it important to actually have some of those resources? Yes, but not to abuse them so much so that you become, stuck in a loop or you procrastinate. I mean, how many times are you staring at your phone and you look up and an hour has gone by?
Right. More often than we would like to admit, but it's true.
And so it's not always beneficial, right? Paul says in Corinthians that everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. And so if you're choosing to do the things that'll be beneficial to your growth, to your health, to your spiritual health, to your mental health, all of these things, if you're choosing to do those, the choice has been throughout this entire season. So I'm going to just keep saying it. If you're choosing to do the things that are actually going to be beneficial to you, then what you're doing is you're choosing to take a step further towards growth. And for some people, you just need to get rid of Hulu and Netflix off your phone. For some of you, you need to stop listening to 15 podcasts every day. I told you I was going to be super ironic.
I know.
You need to stop listening to 15 podcasts a day and actually do what your parents have asked you to do. Do what your boss has asked you to do. And here's the really hard one. Put down the phone and do what God's asked you to do. Right? So
you answered my question before, because that was my other poke the bear question was, is there a difference of getting back to zero from Christianity compared to the secular? And me personally, I feel like it all comes back to free will and choice. I'm either going to do the thing God put in my heart to do. I'm either going to do the job my boss asked me to do. And I guess for a secular job, you might have a deadline. So the deadline is I need to get this report on my desk, on my boss's desk by the end of the work day or end of work week. And I have 24 hours in the day. So I know I'm sleeping 8 hours. Let me just be gracious and say you're sleeping 8 hours. You might sleep 5, whatever, whoever you are. Then you're getting up and you're doing what you're supposed to do. Now, listen, just because you clock out doesn't mean you got to stop. Now, I do believe in a balance,
right.
But am I doing everything I need to do to get the job done? Like, am I doing the very, like, am I committing to putting my phone face down or putting my phone in the other room to be able to get the things done that I need to get done? What would happen if we just committed an hour of, hey, I'm just going to knock this out for the hour, and an hour goes quick. And you know what happens when an hour goes by? You probably get into such a zone you can afford to go 2 hours because it's really going to help you in the long run.
Right. Right. Did you know that 1 hour is only 4% of your day? 1 hour. It's 4% of your day. That's it.
And that makes sense to me. That does. Because I think we look at like, oh man, hour is such a long time. I mean, look, me and you love sports. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I love watching a good football game.
Right.
That's about 3.5 to 4 hours. And I just made a huge commitment that I'm going to sit here and go through every emotional high and low.
Yep.
that the game is going to present.
Yeah.
And just hope, okay, Gino, you're doing great. Can you continue on this path of doing great?
Right.
And then too, I would say like getting back to zero, I always like to look at it like this, man. Like our benchmark in youth ministry, it for us is summer camp. And, you know, historically speaking, when we have come back, summer camp is great. Kids are on a high for 2 weeks and then it fizzes out.
Right.
But we're in October, bro, and we're still seeing numbers increase. We're still seeing kids come in. We're seeing kids want to be involved and want to serve. And so for us, we're flowing in a different pattern. So, which means we had to make some pivots, which means we had to pivot as the culture and as God was instructing us to, but then two, we're realizing, okay, kids want to get a little bit more involved. They want more teaching. So we're giving them 3 weeks of teaching, 1 week of community and groups. That one pivot makes the whole difference. We're doing more like, hey, invite nights. So like it's looking at, okay, we realize our benchmark is summer camp. We know we want to have a great expectation, but that's not the only benchmark. Every week needs to be a benchmark. Like, what did we do? Okay, we spent too much time here. We could spend more time there, opening the store 20 minutes earlier instead of, you know what I'm saying? So like, right. And I know this is a very vague, or it could sound like a very vague, like, hey, getting back to zero. And I think, you know, when you and I were even talking offline before we brought this here, there's so many ways that this can go.
Right. Yeah.
Like obviously this was something that you guys did as a church, as Hope Church, post pandemic,
Right.
you know, and I know you got that thumb up. So what you got?
Well, I was just saying, so the back to zero, it is both a mindset and a measurable number. Right. And so you were saying that your benchmark is youth benchmark is summer camp. Right.
Yeah.
So that's a measurable, attainable goal. That's a measurable, attainable thing. And so what are the handful of things that you do, let's say from October to June, to get yourselves ready, right? And those are all measurable steps and measurable goals.
Yeah.
But if you don't actually talk about summer camp, if you don't ride the wave of summer camp, right? If you don't actually take the wins as they come, and you move forward each time with each one of those, then you're going to find yourself behind zero, behind neutral, and you got to do a whole lot more work to just get back to zero, back to neutral. So then that when you do start planning summer camp, think about it. Can you imagine only talking about summer camp, let's say in June, and you want to pack it out and it's in the second week of July? Like, you wouldn't get a whole lot of play, right? You wouldn't get, but having a debrief of summer camp is also one of the measurable steps. Having a debrief in a meeting or after a meeting is a measurable step for a business leader, right? The metrics for your business. Are you reaching sales? Are you reaching customers? Are you reaching goals? Same thing for a church, right? So when I brought Get Back to Zero, I actually did something called 100 Days to Zero.
Yeah.
And I created both a devotion and a video every day for 100 days to help everybody refocus on, hey, how do we put the disciplines of our spiritual life back into the forefront? How do we actually get the church body itself to come out of the pandemic and say, we're ready to be a church again. We're ready to be God's people again. Like for some of them, it was to step out of fear. For some of them, it was to step back into a building. For some of them, it was to go, oh, you mean I took a portion of the pandemic and I just drive back to the church. You ain't done it in a year. So you completely got out of that habit. And so you're getting back to the routine of, do you remember where your church is? Right. Like, other pastors I know have been like, I don't think they remember where our church is. Yeah, I'm sure they do. But just to get them back was kind of a big deal. And so all of that is to say that it's both spiritual, mental, but it's also physical, measurable.
Yes.
And so that's something that we have to remind ourselves. If we want to take that next step forward, we have to assess where we are and figure out what the next step forward would be. And if that's just to get us back to zero through disciplines, that would be the way to get you there.
Well, you mentioned it too, and I'm going to add to it because you talked about wins.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We also have to acknowledge some losses because you know what? I mean, you can look at football teams, that go undefeated with a perfect season. That is impossible to do, which means, and here's what I'll say. Roll Tide roll. But Nick Saban, to me, goes down as one of the greatest college football coaches.
Right. I can't argue with that.
Bill Belichick, you can say whatever you want to say, deflate gate, whatever, but the man coached.
And he won championships.
And so when you look at that, now I'm going to go here with it. I think Phil Jackson might be the greatest basketball coach of all time because he coached two of the greatest players, Michael Jordan being one, Kobe Bryant being number two. And when you look at what he did with Michael Jordan to go to 6 NBA finals, okay, and you have a 6-0 record in the finals, and then you coach Kobe, and then you go to 5, and then he lost, I think, a finals with Kobe, but he won 5 with Kobe.
Right.
I'm saying these coaches' names because see the mentality, right? This there's no such thing as a perfect season. Yeah, you might go undefeated, but if you were to ask these guys, Nick Saban, when he would get done winning the national title, the first thing he would, okay, what are you going to do? Celebrate for a little bit, but I got to start looking at what I got to do next season because I'm getting ready to lose half of my team to the NFL draft, and I got to figure out how I'm going to be able to repeat this cycle to come back.
Right. With new players, with new circumstances, with new, yep. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to acknowledge the loss. You know what? Sometimes you need a loss. A loss can humble you.
Absolutely.
And I think in order to get back to zero, yeah, you're going to lose some things.
Right.
We talked about that in the season. We actually talked about that with a Job understanding. He lost everything. And sometimes I think a loss will do us better to humble us instead of thinking that we're better than we think we are and like our flowers don't stink.
Yeah.
And I think that there needs to come this realization. Nobody wants to ask the question, what can we do better? Hey, what can we do better next year?
Yeah.
But I've learned to embrace it because you know what, man, we do need to figure out what can we do to get better. I'm excited about next year's summer camp and I can't wait to get there, but we still got to talk about what went here and what we did and the way we, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I just look at like coaches like Nick Saban and Belichick and, you know, Phil Jackson. And you know what was amazing about Phil? If you go watch that documentary, I know I mentioned it in another episode, but I mentioned it again. This dude coached Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Steve Kerr, and then who I like to call the wildfire was the worm and Dennis Rodman.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you mesh all of these personalities? Hey, that's great what we did last season. It's over.
Right.
We got to focus on this season.
Well, and I'm sure what you would hear Phil say and Jordan as well, right? Like, and Kobe was a big proponent of this too. Like he stayed with the fundamentals. Like he was always on the disciplines of the fundamentals. Like you got to make sure that the basics are right, because if the basics are right, then you can add to it. And so then you look at a person like a Tiger Woods, who even after winning how many PGAs, he hired himself a coach and he went back to zero to fix his swing, like to perfect his swing. I mean,
are we coachable? Are we teachable?
And in the call back to in the call of getting back to zero, that is a question that we have to ask. Like, okay, so we missed it here, we missed it there. That's fine. Are we coachable enough? Are we teachable enough? Do we have the opportunity now to really say, you know what? The next time I go through this, I just want to be this much better, right? I'm going to make it to zero. I'm going to make it back to where I was. And then I want to be able to take the next right step.
Man, I think if our pride can get out of the way and acknowledge that sometimes we're off, because sometimes we are. Let me make it personal. Maybe I didn't communicate really well with my wife. Maybe I blew up. Maybe I shouldn't have yelled at my kid like that. Like when we come back from summer camp, daily devotions, right? So the SOAP method: scripture, observation, application, and prayer. Yeah. Like, am I spending time in God's word, right? Like you said in a previous episode, what I did to get my wife, I need to do to keep my wife.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
If I wanted to pursue date nights with her before I married her, that means I need to continue to do date nights, and you know what, your date nights can be making pizza at the house with Netflix, just you and her. If you take Netflix off of here and then maybe just have Netflix on one device in the house.
Right.
Who knows what doors that opens? A blessing for you, my man. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just thinking, for me as a youth pastor, and you can speak to this and close this out, but for me as a youth pastor, when I look at our young people, they're hungry, and it's looking at them to remain steadfast, like getting back to zero. It's going to be some work. Right. Like we have to do the work. Like you have to get up every day, put one foot in front of the other. Some days you want to do it. Some days you don't. There are some days that are going to be great and you're going to love it because everything went well. Your teacher treated you well. You got the Starbucks order you wanted. You had the food you wanted. But then what happens when the day isn't well?
Right. Yeah.
You know, like what happens when the day, and so like we still need, like, in order to get back to zero, acknowledging it. And then once you acknowledge it, put a plan in place. It could be a simple plan, right? Some people like to do these 90-day crash diets. That's dumb.
Why do you think they call it a crash diet?
Yeah, because you crash out. So how about we just look at, okay, you know what? In November, here's what I'm going to commit to doing.
Right.
Okay. In December, here's what I'm going to commit to doing.
Yeah.
Take like you're looking at the bigger picture, but now you're looking at it you're trying to look at this micro. Like you got to look at it in a micro. You're looking at it in a macro. Yes. Huge. Micro. Less 1 month at a time, 1 day, 1 week, 1 minute, 1 moment. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I'll let you wind us down, man.
Absolutely. And it's in those moments that there's a leadership saying that you don't default to what you want to do, you default to your training. So like when hard times come, you default to your training. I think it's actually a military phrase. And so when the military gets you, they break you down and then they give you a bunch of fundamentals, a bunch of disciplines that you're just supposed to know. You're just supposed to do. And actually, trying to get yourself back to zero, trying to get yourself back to a place where you can say, okay, my next step is growth. You're going to have to fix or figure out what your default mode is. And then maybe you have to change your default mode. Your default mode, if it's not prayer or if it's not reading the word, if it's not being among people of God or calling for support, then maybe it's time to change the default mode to get back to zero, and then do the work. Take the time, do the work. I think we mentioned that in season 7. One of our episodes in season 7 was, hey, do the work. It's worth the work, but just take the next right step. And for some of us, the next right step might be, hey, I don't remember what the spiritual disciplines are, Pastor Wes, right? Pastor Isaiah, I don't remember what they are. And I think that would be really good to have. I don't remember exactly, what it is to get me to zero. I don't know how to assess. Well, guess what? Pastor Wes and Pastor Isaiah, we are developing something called the Back to Zero Devo. That's and right. We want to give that to you for free. Every listener, anybody, that's going to be for free. And so it's going to be basically 30 days. It's going to be the disciplines and the tasks to get you back to the basics of Christianity, back to the basics of life, back to just the basics. And so we're going to have that in the description down below. We've been developing that behind the scenes. And so we want to drop that for you guys as well. Real quickly, just from a spiritual standpoint, you got to get back to spiritual disciplines. If you're missing any one of the parts, prayer, fasting, serving, giving, reading your word, silence and solitude, all of those things, right? If you're missing one of those, maybe that's what the draw is that you're feeling in your spirit of saying, I just can't, or I don't understand, or something's different. I'm feeling something different. Maybe that's a call from God to get you back to a spiritual discipline that maybe you haven't had for a little while. And you know what? That's awesome. That's okay. And so that'll be a part of our 30 back to zero Devo, our 30 days back to the basics is explaining some of that for us and getting those disciplines in there, making sure that your default now is to turn to God and to turn to his word and to turn to his ways before anything else. And so, that's a part of it. Praying is a huge part of that. Praying is a huge part of that.
And you're giving away, what is it, 1 or 2 more?
We're gonna give away 2 more. We were able to give away 2 last episode, a couple episodes ago, and so we're gonna give away 2 more here. It's called A Praying Life by Paul Miller. It is a great book to kind of help us reset, get back to zero. The tagline is connecting with God in a distracting world. And if you've been hyper distracted, again, I say it tongue in cheek because don't be fooled. I still do this too, but put down the phone and go poop, man. Like you don't got to have it with you every 2 seconds.
Right.
Maybe have a book instead, or maybe pray instead, or something. I just think that we're plugged in too much. We're consuming too much, and then we sit back and we wonder why when I look forward, zero is so far away.
Yeah.
So let's do what we can to get back to zero. In order to get the book, here's what you need to do. You need to be a subscriber to the channel. You need to like this video. And then you need to comment with us, throw in the comments the next 2 hashtags, hashtag a praying life, hashtag a praying life. and then hashtag back to zero. If you throw those in there, we will go ahead and choose 2 people to send a book to. And if you want a book, if you're not going to participate in this whole thing, but you just want a book, drop us an email, mintalkspodcast@gmail.com. Let us know that you really desire one. We will do our best to get you one. And so, here are those hashtags again. You have to be a subscriber to the channel. You have to like this video. And then in the comments, you have to say hashtag a praying life and then hashtag back to zero. You do those 3 things and we will get you in the running for a book giveaway. Take us home, Isaiah.
Hey, if you have not liked, subscribed, or follow, please do that. We appreciate just you being here. If this is your first time here, welcome. We love you. And once again, we are asking for support in this season, but we're asking for support because we want to be good stewards, but we are also what we are doing is we are expanding our reach with this season and the seasons to come. And so with our partnership with Riverside FM, we are able to do that. And because you have been a supporter, we appreciate it. We can do more. And we are just looking, if you want to give one time or if you want to give reoccurring, we appreciate it. And where you can give, it is buymeacoffee.com/mentalkspodcast. And there's different options for you to choose. Coming up on season 8, we are looking on episode 7. We're in season 8, but what we're doing is we're going to be hosting some interviews, and we're able to do that functionally through just this. And so, we will let you know who those will be and who that will be as we get ready to do that. And then episode 8 is going to be a life update.
That's right.
Just where we're at and what we're doing and how we've been.
Excuse me. Wow. We've kind of been at this for a little while today. So
it's been a minute. It's been
It's been a minute. And I can tell you this, though. Our interview is going to be great. Episode 8 is going to be life updates, what we've been doing, what we have, and all of the different energy levels that you see through all of our different videos here.
Yeah.
A lot of it is because we just keep doing so much, and we are having a great time doing it. But we just figured we'd give you some life updates, what's going on with Pastor Wes, what's going on with Pastor Isaiah, and some of the plans for our future Ministry Talks podcast episodes. So
go ahead.
With that, I was just going to say, we always say something here at Ministry Talks Podcast. We don't know everything,
but we're willing to walk with you through anything.
Yeah. We love you guys. Thanks for being here. Peace.